Hey my friends, this is Daniel Alley, and today I want to share with you 5 reasons why you need to break up with the person that you're dating right now. Look, whether you are going out with a man or a woman, it all remains the same. So I'm going to give you 5 signs that now is the time to leave this toxic relationship. So please listen up, because here I come. The first sign that you're in the wrong relationship is that you are experiencing emotional manipulation. There's a lot of times where people start off in a relationship and everything is going right? Lovey-dovey, hugs and kisses. Some people even decide to have sex, they want to get married, they want to make babies. But then emotional conflicts start to occur. Now you are conflicted with a partner that is using everything that you've given them against you. Or maybe they know something about you that they can use against you if you decide to break up with them. And this happens to a lot of people, my friends. They've gotten into a relationship and they've already committed to a certain level within that relationship, and now it's too late for them to back out because now they're getting blackmailed. Now they're getting manipulated. Now the narrative is beginning to change. But what do you do when this happens? What do you do when you've given so much time and effort into someone and now they're starting to emotionally rip you apart? It's very simple. You need to address it, and if they're not willing to make a change, then you need to forget them. Because this is what happens to a lot of people who get into emotionally abusive relationships. You see, what begins to happen is that they start to give their power away to people that use it against them. And then as the relationship progresses, they realize that they don't have anything left to give. Now, this happens because they've exerted all their power for this person. And if you find that you're being emotionally manipulated and things are being used against you and your family and your future, then you need to remove yourself from this relationship. There's no question about making that decision right now because you already know what to do. The second sign that you need to break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend is if they are too clingy. That's right, there's a lot of times where people become too attached to one person, right? Maybe you've been dating someone and they have left everything behind just to be with you, or vice versa. Maybe you've left everything behind to be with them. You've left your job behind, your schooling behind, your friends, your family, everything. You've let it go because you think you care about this person, or maybe you think that person cares about you and they're giving you more than they need to give. You're realizing that every time you check your phone, they're hitting you up. You're realizing that every time you look on the side, they're right there. And all of a sudden, within just a few months, you've got someone who's too committed to you for no reason. Now, maybe you've casted a spell on them, right? Maybe you have something in you that they know, or maybe the person that you are in love with, you're just addicted to them. And so what needs to happen is that if you're the person who's clinging, or you have someone who is clingy, it needs to be addressed. Now, I know what happens. I know that when you say, listen up, you're too clingy, they're gonna get offended because they don't think they're too clingy. Maybe it's true, you've asked them consciously or unconsciously if they can always be by your side. You've showed them that you don't mind. But now, you need to establish borders. Now, you need to let them know that in order for you to grow, you need some space. You need some distance, right? You need to understand that you are only able to grow by yourself for this moment until you make that eternal commitment, which is called marriage. Now, I can go on and on about this because it's a psychological problem, and sometimes it's a parental concern. Maybe that girl is hanging out with you, man, because her father is not in her life and she's looking for a father like you to take care of her. Or maybe you're a lady and the guy that you're with is bothering you all the time because he's looking for a mother that he never had. So you have to know whether or not you're playing a role of being their mom or dad. And if it continues to progress this way, then you know it's going to end up bad, and somebody's going to leave extremely sad. So you have to protect the interest of yourself and the person that you're dealing with and let them know that they might be too clingy. You have to be upfront. If you can't be straight up with them now, then you can't be straight up with them in the future. So make sure you tell them exactly how you feel and emotionalize with them until they get the point. Because that's the only way you're ever going to get the message across. So if someone's too clingy, make sure to handle it like a boss. Now the third sign that it's time to break up with someone is that they're trying to change you. You know, if it's been months or years and you've gotten used to a person, but all of a sudden they're trying to change you into the vision that they have for you instead of the vision that you have for you, then that could be very detrimental to the person that you're actually supposed to become. You know, there's a lot of times where people think that they can control you. They think that they can change you because they have an image in their mind of who you can become. But the fact is that God has a version of who He needs you to become. And if their agenda conflicts with His agenda and you know it, then now is the time to let this person go. Because in order for you to grow, you have to become the best version of yourself, not the best version of who they want you to be. You have to listen to the calling within. You can't date someone who wants you to look a certain way for their own selfish agenda. You don't want to go out with someone who is going to take advantage of you just so that they can have you at their expense. You don't want to be with someone who conveniently uses you for their purpose while running you down into the ground. Because that's what a lot of people do. When you fall into a toxic relationship, sometimes you might be hypnotized to the changes that these people are trying to make in your life. And if you buy into certain conversations, certain suggestions, just because they do it in a spirit of love, then you may be convinced into becoming who they want you to be. But that might not help you in the end. So listen up, my friend. If you feel that this person is trying to change you for worse instead of for better, then now is time to give up that relationship. Because you don't want to cross your own moral standards. You don't want to give up your whole entire soul just for this other person's goal. You don't want to be the person who's been used for decades and decades and eventually gets kicked to the curb through a divorce. Because this is what happens to a lot of people, right? They don't know who they are, and so they submit by doing what they're told. And then eventually this person lets them go, and now they're too old. Now they can't do anything. Now they're broke, busted, and disgusted by the relationship. And then they get into their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they don't have anything left because they gave it all away. See, my friends, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to prepare you. I'm just trying to let you know that the decisions that you're making in your teens, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, even your 50s, in a new relationship, you have to understand what you're getting yourself into. You can't give yourself up to someone else just because you feel lonely, just because you're desperate, just because you feel like you need to be with someone. No, my friends, you have to be deliberate in your decisions and not give yourself up to people who will eventually rule your life. Now, I know some people watching this video might think, man, Daniel, I'm a pushover, I'm a people pleaser, I don't know how to do that. Well, the fact is this, you have to listen to your own heart. If you know that something is wrong within your relationship, then now it's time to make a change. If you're with someone who's trying to completely change you into who you don't want to be, then how's that going to benefit you? How's that going to benefit them? How's that going to benefit everyone that you want to impact along the way? You see, no one is going to win. It's a lose-lose situation. So make a decision today and break up with the people or person that's trying to change you from who you're supposed to be. Now, the fourth reason to break up with someone is if they have different beliefs. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, Daniel, everyone thinks differently, and it's absolutely true. But if you're with someone who has a completely different way of thinking in which you don't want to go, then now is time to let them know. Because there's some people who are indoctrinated into believing in a certain way of thinking, in a certain way of living, in a certain way of giving that you don't want anything to do with. There's a lot of people who are wrapped up in the wrong religions. They're wrapped up in the wrong philosophies. They're wrapped up in the wrong causes that are completely destructive. And if you partake in those behaviors, in those habits, in those disciplines, then it will destroy you. You see, this is what happens to a lot of people. They submit themselves to someone with a contradicting mindset, and eventually they don't realize it until it's too late. They fell in love or lust with someone who has the wrong thoughts, and they ran with that person with the belief that that person was the right one. But the fact is that they are misled. They are deceived. And that's what happens to a lot of people who don't have any real beliefs. They don't have a solid foundation for themselves, and what ends up happening is that they give up their lives for someone else. And they become part of a false purpose, living their life thinking they're in love, but meanwhile they're actually doing something in a spirit of hate. So let's say you're a good Christian man or woman, and all of a sudden you meet someone with a completely different religion, a completely different background, a completely different way of thinking that you know disagrees with the text of your scriptures, then now you know that it's time to dismiss them. But in order for you to know this, you have to read your own book, right? You have to read your own text in order for you to understand what to look out for. Whatever your religion is, whatever your beliefs are, you have to know where you stand. You can't afford to be obsessed with other people if you don't even know what you believe. But that's what happens to a lot of people, right? They give themselves up to someone else who misleads them their whole entire life, and then they realize, uh-oh, I made a mistake. And that's the problem that we see with young people today. So if you don't want to make that mistake, the first conversation that you should have, at least within the first 3 months of dating this person, is what do you believe? In fact, I think it should be within the first 30 minutes of dating someone. Ask them, what is your belief? Where are you coming from? What are your parents like? What is your foundation? And the moment you understand where they're coming from, what they do, where they want to go, and their foundation, is the moment you understand exactly how far you can take it with your relation. And the fifth reason to break up with someone is if you're driven by lust. You know, a lot of times we're supposed to learn before we even become teenagers what our sexual nature actually is all about. We should learn that from our household. We should learn that from our church. We should learn that from school. We should learn so much more about sex before we become adults. From the ages of 13 to the age of 18, we should be well versed on how sexual nature actually works. But the fact is that we learn through modeling. We learn through what we see on TV, on social media, what we see in person, the stories we hear. And we think that if they can do it, then it must be right. But it's absolutely wrong. You see, there's a lot of times where people give up their bodies because they don't understand how important it actually is. They don't realize that they're relinquishing part of themselves and their soul for a worthless reason. They don't understand that sex only lasts 30, 60 minutes at the most. They think that that sex is going to carry them for a lifetime until they make a baby, until they're committed to the wrong person, until they realize that now is too late. And that's what happens to a lot of people, right? They end up sleeping with the wrong person, and then they're forced to marry them, or they're forced to have children with them. And I'm not saying that children are cursed or that they weren't supposed to be born, because only God makes that decision. But I am telling you that you can set yourself up for God's plan if you prevented all that. If you understood the consequences of lust and knew the difference between lust and love. A lot of people get it mixed up, right? They think that lust and sex could eventually turn into love. That rarely happens. It's usually love that turns into sex, right? You have to love the person first before you have sex with them. You don't have sex with the person and then fall in love. Well, like I said before, that happens in a few situations. But in most situations, you fall in love. You understand the person. You understand where they're going. You understand your purpose, which is far more important than sex. And then you commit, and then you have sex, right? You don't have sex and then figure out the person and then commit and then go have more sex. Doesn't work that way, but I must admit that some people do end up making it work. So my bottom line is that if your relationship is driven by sex and you know that it's wrong, even if you have a little inkling that it's wrong, then you must break up with that person right now. So there you go, my friends. I just gave you 5 reasons why you must break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend. If you understand what I'm saying in this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and please hit that notification button. More importantly, take action. Some relationships must end right now. Some relationships can be worked out in the future. Some relationships need a break so the both of you can develop yourself and understand whether or not this is going to actually work in the future. My friends, always do big things, and if you have any questions, please write me an email at info@danielalley.com. I look forward to your success, I look forward to your relationships, and I look forward to everything that you do for the rest of your life. I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.